recent video I made about my private koi pond that I have on my patio in the middle of the city here in San Francisco. A lot of people had asked me how I made it, and because I have had different kind of pond systems, I had a smaller one before, people have been asking me over the years how I put it together. And I never really made a video on how to make it. I just made a video about what it is and kind of how it works. So I thought I would talk a little bit about how I constructed it. Now, I was actually going through some old photos and some old video footage and actually found a few short clips of when I was putting this together last year. So I figured I would just kind of make a little video, talk about how I built it, and maybe give you guys some pointers and let you know what you'll need to construct one of your own. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, well, this is some of the footage that I found. So this is basically the construction of the pond. I used 3/4 inch plywood. It's an 8-foot piece, 4 feet by 8 feet by 3/4 inch. The sides are 2 feet tall. So basically, I needed 3 sheets of plywood to make this whole thing. What isn't shown, but I will talk about, is the actual frame around. So it's not just the plywood, but there's actually a 2x4 frame that I built around both the bottom and the top portion of the pond to add, to basically to give it the structural rigidity and strength in order to hold the water pressure, because it's a lot of water pushing and that's a lot of weight pushing against it. So you do have to build a 2x4 frame around the box, very similar to how you would kind of build an aquarium stand, very similar construction. So here you can kind of see the 2x4s on the bottom and 2x4s on the top, and they wrap around the entirety, both top and bottom. So there's kind of an example of what that looks like. And then on the end, you want to have the shorter end pieces screwed into the longer side pieces, and that's going to just aid in some of the structural strength there. Now, I'm not like a contractor, structural engineer or anything, just from me building stands and stuff like that, it just happens to be a little bit stronger this way. And then the other thing that I did before I put the pond liner in is I put some of this siding insulation down, these insulating panels. And the reason why is not for warmth or anything like that. It had nothing to do with temperature, but everything to do with just protecting that pond liner, because that's the only thing keeping the water inside the pond and obviously keeping the wood dry between the pond liner and the wood. So that is there just to prevent any leaks and just to make sure no splinters or anything go through and compromise the pond liner. So there's me filling it up. I'm kind of doing a level check. I'll talk about that shortly. You can see there in the middle, there is a cross section, and that is a basically like a center brace on an aquarium. It does the same thing. Here you can see that the level is not perfect. I actually put that up there before there was any water in the system, and then filled it up with water, and then double checked, and it was exactly the same. So there wasn't any sagging. Just to be sure, I did put a beam and some concrete piers underneath. So that's a 4x4 beam underneath the deck there, on top of 4x4 piers there, just to aid in some structural strength of the overall system. And then here you can see the system running. We'll talk about the filter shortly. You might notice that was the old pond before. That didn't work out so well, so that's been replaced. But anyway, this is what it looked like when it was complete, and I loved it. Okay, let's take a quick pause here. What I do want to share is all of that footage that you saw was before the next generation, essentially. So that big grow bed filter thing that you saw there at the end is no longer part of the pond. I actually had to tear that apart due to a structural failure. That was built to sit on a flat surface, and it didn't work very well being suspended over the pond, and I ended up having to take it all apart and do something different. So that was probably about 8 or 9 months ago that it looked like that. So now we've got a new system, so everything moving forward is how it looks currently, and it's not as large or as grand of a design as far as the grow bed area, but much easier to manage and much safer and stronger. So we'll go back and take a look at how it looks now. Okay, well obviously it looks a whole lot different now. The filter, as you notice, is very different. So what happened is that other filter just didn't work, it failed, and I had to come up with something different. So this is a 37-gallon tote that I got from Home Depot, and ended up building a little 2x4 kind of frame around it, and that's just to keep it from bulging out because of the rocks and the water pressure. Um, the other thing that's different with this system versus the old system is that the old system, the PVC was at the bottom of the filter. The water would flow up from the pump down into that filter, then flow up and then spout out through the top, where this one, I'm doing it similar to my old system from a long time ago, where I'm just basically made like a spray bar on top and just trickling the water through the media, and then it's pouring out through the about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way down with a bulkhead fitting that I made there, as you can see. So drilled a hole in the side, made kind of a strainer on the inside to prevent anything from coming through, so rocks and media and everything don't get stuck or they can't pass through because there's a screen there, and just put a little downspout there just to have it flow back into the pond. Here you can see kind of a close-up of the bed. So right now I just have this kind of a marsh plant that I put in there just to kind of help in reducing the nitrates. And then here you can see the basically these are just kind of green onions that I got from the grocery store, and I cut them and kind of grew them in water again, and then put them in the tub there. And so what happens is they'll grow, and you cut them, and then they keep growing, kind of like cutting grass. So here you can see kind of the water just trickling through, and then basically they'll just keep doing that. I'll probably grow some other stuff later on, some tomatoes and stuff. And then as far as the media, it's a mixture of these aquaponic clay balls. These are like clay balls that were baked, and then I also have some lava rock in there as well, just to kind of add some of the volume and keep the weight down. And then here you can see my fish just kind of swimming around. And so oftentimes, you know, in San Francisco, I don't have a backyard. So what I'll do is I'll just sit either on the little bench that I made, or I'll sit in the little recliner chair on the porch and just hang out and feed my fish and just kind of enjoy them. I threw a little food out there just to kind of keep them in frame. So that's a little bit of fish food. And then one of the things that they really do enjoy is I'll get some frozen peas, and I'll cook them just in the microwave and then cool them down, smash them up with a little fork, and then I'll throw them in there, and they love to eat that as well. As you know, goldfish and koi do like to have some vegetable matter in their diet. So, but other than that, pretty simple system. You might notice that little glass tank sitting there. That is basically my Daphnia culture. So I grow Daphnia to feed some of my other fish and some of my other aquariums. So there goes the green peas. So anyway, that's kind of how I built it. Sorry I didn't make a video like step by step, but pretty basic. If you have basic skills in carpentry and stuff like that, you should be able to do this yourself. So I apologize that I didn't have like a real build video. When I built it, I wasn't really thinking about filming. I was just really focused on getting the project done. So sometimes I just forget to grab the camera, or I just figure maybe you guys aren't interested, but in hindsight, I probably should have filmed myself making it. But anyway, things that you'll need some wood, obviously, plywood, a better quality, thicker plywood, 3/4 inch minimum. You're gonna need 2x4s, you're gonna need probably a table saw and a skill saw, a circular saw. You're going to need screws. I would recommend getting screws that are okay to be outside, like a deck screw. You're going to also want to treat the wood, and that's something that's very important that I didn't do the first time a few years ago. I didn't treat my little smaller 120-gallon system. When I built the new one, I did treat the wood, as you notice, and that really does help in repelling the water, and it does protect the wood. So treating the wood is going to be very important with some kind of outside sealant. And then you obviously need a pond liner, so getting yourself a large pond liner that's going to be large enough to cover the bottom, cover the sides, and also overlap the top, so that you don't, you're not short on pond liner. You're going to want to have probably some foam or some kind of layer. You can use felt or whatever to protect the pond liner. You're going to need a pump to pump water from the pond into whatever filter you choose to build. You're going to want to have some PVC pieces, some vinyl tubing, some hose clamps, an electrical supply. So pretty much you have to be kind of handy in order to make this, but if you've built an aquarium stand or you've built shelves before, you're probably very equipped to do something like this. It wasn't that difficult. So anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below if you've made something like this or if you plan to do something similar in the future. And again, I apologize that I didn't have a bunch of footage of me building it, but I did want to share since so many people asked me to make this video, kind of going to the detail on the filter and going into detail on the build of the pond. Regarding the filter, the media inside the filter, I got it, the aquaponics soil I got from an aquaponics store, and then the lava rock I bought from a nursery. So that just it's inexpensive that way, and you can fill up a large grow bed. I've grown in these systems before. I've grown mint, rosemary a little bit, but it was a little bit too wet, so that didn't work well. Lettuce worked well, kale worked well, strawberries did well, tomatoes did excellent, green onions are just a constant supply. So lots of things that you can grow, just depends on your climate, the amount of sun that you have, etc. So and then the great thing is that the plants act as a filter for the fish, so the plants will absorb all the nitrates in the system and make the water fresh and clean for the fish. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.